Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Superhuman Radio. Today is April 28th. We're nearing the end of the month. Lots going on. We are 42 days into quarantine. Wrong side. As you can see by the little number right there. Look at that. I'm like the weather guy. I got to know where the clouds are. And we're excited because a lot of states are going to be coming out. Some have already come out of lockdown. We're going to see what happens as we move forward. If you missed yesterday's show, you really need to tune in, especially the last 14 minutes of the show. I go on a rant that I propose exactly by using some critical thinking and looking at the seeding and spread of this virus, how we may be able to confine future spreads of viruses very easily without shutting the entire nation down. And I know, who am I? But really, listen to it. It's very, very good. But anyway, we have a great show planned today. It's the BluePrint Power Hour. But before we do that, we have to thank our title sponsor, and that is Legendary Foods. They have a really great special right now. If you remember, they had a discount code, but it didn't include the tasty pastries, but now it does. If you go to eatlegendary.com, use code SHR10 for 10% off all orders, including tasty pastries. Yay, yay, yay. I ate 2 tasty pastries yesterday for dessert after dinner. I'm on a 1 meal a day fast right now. I'm enjoying, because I'm not training as hard as I normally do. And I still want something sweet at the end of my meal to punctuate it. And I can always turn to the great folks at Legendary Foods to produce stuff that doesn't have any sugar in it, including these amazing nut butters. And I had a handful of nuts this morning. That's all I've eaten so far since my last meal yesterday at 6 o'clock. And they are the best. And you got to go there and check them out. Eatlegendary.com. If you've never tried the tasty pastry, you're missing out, because it is a Pop-Tart upgraded, 9 grams of protein, less than 1 gram of sugar. And you put it in a toaster oven or in an actual pop-up toaster, if you still have one of those, toast it for a little while. I mean, it's better. It's better than a Pop-Tart, and your kids will love them. So get them for your kids. Also, I want to mention to those of you who are starting to tune in right now live, start a watch party. Reach out to some friends by just clicking the watch party button on Facebook while you're watching the show live, and your friends will be notified and they'll come join. Because the more people we get to tune in, the more people we get to choose a healthier lifestyle, the more people that will actually not have to worry about these future pandemics. So there you go. And now, without any other, let me just hide that and do that and play his theme music, of course.
Calling all Blueprint Army. Fall in line. It's time for the Blueprint Power Hour with Coach Rob Regish on the Superhuman Radio Network.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well. And, your points about COVID-19, I think, are really well taken. And, it's crazy, but you're the only person that I can think of that's doing critical thinking, right? And making both common sense and, or complex suggestions on how to deal with this thing. And that's especially true because of the second half of what you said.
So you know what's really funny? Uh-oh, Rob, we just lost you. Uh-oh. I'm sure he'll figure that out and come right back. The really funny thing is that I wrote an article exactly 7.5 weeks ago, almost 2 months ago, about the benefits of the sun and the sun's production of both 25-hydroxy vitamin D and LL37, which is a peptide that seems to help fight viruses. And really, way before anybody was even talking about it, I'm just going to text him and say you dropped. He should know, but hopefully he can get back in. Before anybody even made the connection between sun and viruses in general, and then this virus, and now all you hear coming out of the CDC and all those people who really are paid to think about this stuff is that the sun may be playing a role in protecting us from getting this virus. I don't know what's going on with Rob. He usually connects right away. Let me try reaching out to him real quick. Hold on a second. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Okay. All right. You're not here yet, Rob. We have here he comes. Here he comes. Here he comes. Let me get no. There we go. Okay, excellent. Okay. Can you hear me, Rob? Now I can't hear you. Can't hear you. No. I think we're gonna have to restart the show. Oh, there you go. Wait. Is that you?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, your microphone takes a little while to warm up. Yeah. So anyway, yes, but you're right. We've been talking about things on this show for a long time that actually have value. I'm not just throwing fear mongering out there. I'm actually trying to give people solutions. And like I was saying before we lost you, I wrote that article about the sun and coronavirus 7.5 weeks ago, almost 2 months ago. And just now we're starting to hear in the news that the sun may help prevent coronavirus.
I saw that, and my wife laughed, and she said, Carl was talking about this 2 months ago.
I know. Could you imagine? I mean, I know this is very self-serving for me to say, but could you imagine if I reached more people in this country and more people signed on and subscribed to the idea that hard work, getting to sleep on time, and eating an ancestral diet actually has a value in protecting you and making you live longer? Just think of the burden to healthcare that would be removed.
Yeah, and the money that could have been saved.
And lives. So let's get right to the show today. The first question comes from Joe Tarantino. I wonder if he's related to Quentin. He says, I wanted to get you and meaning me and Rob's thoughts on nutrient partitioning supplements. Do they work for better absorption like they claim? Also, you mentioned microdosing LSD on a podcast. What protocol do you use? What website do you order it from? So let's start with the first question, because a lot of supplement companies make a lot of money selling glucose disposal type products and nutrient partitioning type products. What do you think?
You know, the first time I heard this term, it was from Dr. Scott Connolly, right? When he rolled out metrics. And he used the term repartitions nutrients. And so what he claimed was that due to Metrix's amino acid profile, it preferentially redirected calories away from fat and towards muscle. And then later on, right, there was a whole swath of supplements that claimed the same thing. But if you think about it, I mean, honestly, sit down and think way back. Bodybuilders have been practicing nutrient partitioning for decades. So, you know, if the calories you eat in the hour or so after you train, that's, you know, almost all of it goes towards muscle and almost none towards fat. That's nutrient partitioning. Your point, Carl, that you made a million times, you can overeat all you want on protein and you're not going to get fat. That's nutrient partitioning too. So there are drugs, though, which cause this effect, some of which do so in disease states like adult onset diabetes. And those would be your glucose disposal agents like metformin and so forth. The concept that Metrix introduced, though, was that, hey, here was an over-the-counter supplement that could do the same thing. And to be fair, the first metrics, the first few batches that were rolled out seemed to have that effect. But I want you to also think about this. There were two things going on then during that time period that may have contributed to that effect. First was, of course, the rumors that Metrix was spiked with a little something extra, at least the first batches were. I don't know about that. What I can tell you is that I use both, the new and the older ones, you know, and after the first batch, you didn't quite get the same effects or no effects at all. And so thereafter, compounds like vanadyl sulfate came out, and again, the nutrient partitioning claim. I personally don't think that compound lived up to that particular claim. There are a couple of things which do it. The legal ones, one of the best legal ones is anacyclus pyrethrum. We use that in Progenadrex. It does, in fact, help a lot of people eat a lot more carbs and not have it show up around their waistline. And I'm one of those people where it usually goes right to my waistline. Not so, or at least not so much, okay? Ephedrine caffeine, that's a real nutrient partitioning type thing. Studies show you'll hang on to more muscle while you're dieting and certainly lose more fat. Clenbuterol and some other beta-2 agonists, those take nutrient partitioning to a kind of new level. And then you had things like mitochondrial uncouplers like DNP and its over-the-counter equivalent, usnic acid, that had nutrient repartitioning effects. Unfortunately, some people also died as a result of taking too much DNP. I'm not sure about usnic acid. I know there were liver transplants. I don't know if anyone died, but needless to say, kind of risky stuff. If you think about it, though, the ultimate nutrient partitioning agents are anabolic steroids because people can eat more, and most of it seems to go towards building muscle. They can also maximize every gram of protein that they take in because of the way the drugs elevate protein synthesis. So here's the bottom line. Nutrient partitioning is real. I think it's a real thing. Although the most powerful compounds in that regard are mostly illegal in the United States. If you're interested in the concept, though, of nutrient partitioning, I would tell you that there's a lot to learn just doing it with food timed with exercise. There really is. And it's so worthwhile for you to learn that information because it will serve you well for the rest of your life, just the way you eat. I can also say this. Reading up on Vince Gironda's stuff, who was a trainer in the 1950s, you will be astounded at what you learn concerning that topic. And while you're reading it, the last thing I'll say is try to put yourself in Vince's shoes at that time. Nobody was talking about eating a high-fat diet, where he was advocating up to 36 raw eggs a day, liver, heavy cream, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the kind of nutrient partitioning that I look to learn about.
And you know what else is interesting? When we talk about nutrient partitioning, what we really mean is we want to build muscle and lose fat, because an obese person has successfully nutrient partitioned. They just partitioned more of it into body fat.
Right.
And so, when we really talk about nutrient partitioning, what we're really talking about is increasing insulin sensitivity, because what we want is muscle to be fed, but we also want to discriminate against increasing insulin sensitivity in fat, because we don't want fat to be fed. And as you pointed out, the most valuable partitioning agent is exercise and the meals that follow after it. That triggers the partitioning. I want to give shout outs to a couple of people who are watching live. Patrick Rogers is always here. What a wonderful guy. Patrick, we talked about you this morning because all these processing plants are killing animals because people don't know how to process their own animals anymore, Patrick. So they're killing pigs and chickens because if they can't be processed at the plants, people wouldn't know what to do with them. I said to Elisa, we should send those animals to Patrick. He could process them for us. Ryan Fitz is watching live. Jennifer Regish is watching live. So you better be good. Right. Jeremiah Fisher, Andreas Penna, Michael Zavadny, Ron Venny, and a good friend of the show, Christopher Gustafson, is watching from across the pond. So thank you for being here live, all of you. But yeah, when we talk about nutrient partitioning, let's really call it what it is. We want anabolism. We want more muscle. We want less body fat, right?
Yep. That's it. That's the ticket.
Now, what about the second part of the question? He wants to know about microdosing LSD. I guess this is my wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, I was going to say I've got no experience.
So microdosing LSD, you usually anywhere from 20 to 40 micrograms every third day. This is the standard protocol. This is not a protocol I use. I actually take it daily, small doses. But you can experiment with that. They say there's no value in taking it daily because it has a fairly long half-life. But if you're taking such low doses, it's kind of like we used to tell people to take Cialis 30 milligrams every third day. Now they tell people, no, just take 8 milligrams a day. And you get the same benefits and less of the side effects, which with that first day you took a big dose, you could get heartburn and stuff like that. So they all just take eight milligrams a day. The place to go. So the place to go and buy it used to be a website called lysergi.com. It's a play on the word lysergic acid, LYSERGI .com. So that lysergic is spelled LYSERGIC. What they did is they put a dot between the at the end before the C. So it's lysergi, LYSERGI.com. However, they have gone out of business, but on their website, they have links out to several other reliable suppliers. They're all outside the USA. But here's what you need to know about it. It's really a pain in the ass to order. I just recently ordered. The only way to order is to either use some sort of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin or to have money directly wired to them from your bank to their bank. There's no credit cards. They don't take credit cards. In Europe, they take credit cards, ironically, but not from the USA.
Wow.
So that's where to go. Here. So Patrick, he responded. He said, "Bring it. We will have steaks." Yeah, because Patrick processes all his own animals. He often sends me pictures. I'm very, very jealous. But yeah, Patrick, nobody knows what my grandfather used to buy live chickens. I watched him wring the chicken's neck, cut the head off, take the feathers off, cut it open, take the gizzards and everything out. My grandmother would cook that chicken that afternoon. Nobody knows how to process animals anymore except us hunters, maybe. That's it. It's really interesting. We're literally going to be throwing away millions and millions of pounds of meat because if it's not processed for us, we don't know what to do with it. So
it's too bad.
The next question comes from Brian Ortega. He says, I heard you once saying you used an Ecdy injectable. You actually had it made for you or were going to use one. I can't remember. I want to use one too. So can you tell me where to get it? Or if anybody is making it, can you tell me how I need to make one if I have 95% ecdysterone in hand?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Around 6 or 7 years ago now, I think, I did in fact use a sterile injectable ecdysterone product. However, I did not make it, so to speak. A certain well-known chemist made it for me. And you know what? During that time, I got what I considered excellent results, including, oddly enough, some very impressive upper arm gains. And that was quite unexpected because I wasn't training them directly and I sure wasn't shooting there. So it was welcome, but I guess weird. Now,
tricep, bicep, or both?
Well, like I said, I wasn't shooting there. That's the
no. The upper arm gains. Were they tricep, biceps, or both?
You know, that's a great question. I'm not sure that I made the distinction. I just tape measured it, and there.
Okay.
I would guess tricep, but that's a guess. So, anyway, to the best of my knowledge, there's no company making a sterile injectable ecdysterone. I mean, why would they? Technically, by the letter of the law, it's illegal. That doesn't mean it's not a worthwhile exercise, maybe.
Is it illegal or is it illegal for athletes to use?
It's illegal to use in the way that it's, let's say, made for. In the past, things like this have been sold as sterile, transdermal, wink, wink.
Excuse me.
And so, and some people would shoot it. I don't know. To me, it'd just be crazy to try to sell because it's so obvious. But be that as it may, nobody I know is doing one. That does not mean, though, it's not a good idea maybe to call around to some vet supply houses to say, hey, do you have any injectable ecdysterone products?
Do
Because
they make it for animals?
yes, they do, or at least they used to. Let me put it that way. At least they used to. And that was going back to 2012 when I was writing the BluePrint 3.0. I reached out to a guy that was actually using it on his animals in Czechoslovakia. Interesting, very interesting stuff. Now, is it possible to brew your own? Yeah, I would imagine it is. And it might not be ideal, but it wouldn't be impossible. Most recipes, right, for this home brewed gear, if you will, are fairly straightforward. Right, you'd have your bulk powder compound, whether that's testosterone, trenbolone, or ecdysterone. Okay, you'd have, I don't know, 5 grams, let's say, of powder. Then you'll have your benzyl alcohol, benzyl benzoate, and either sterile water or grapeseed oil or some sort of oil to dissolve the compound. Of course, the whole thing is heated to kill off any bacteria, which is the main concern.
Which raises the question, would the Ecdy survive that? Because you have to put it in your oven for numerous hours at the highest temperature that your oven will run. Once you put it into the vehicle and it's in the oil, dissolved in the oil, then you have to heat it. Would the Ecdy survive that high heat?
Very shrewd observation. I'm getting to that. But then the whole thing is, if I'm not mistaken, it's run through a sterile filter, right?
Yes, a Wattman filter. They're very expensive, Wattman filters, and they require high pressure, so you have to buy a pump with it that's going to pump the oil through this medium that literally looks like board, like it's so dense, and you have to push it through that so that it leaves all of the impurities behind.
Right. And so in the past, if you're doing this with test or trend, then the recipes are pretty straightforward. Guys kind of know how to make it, right? But Ecdy is another animal, and it gets back to what to dissolve it in. And then also your point, Carl, about heating. These various ecdysterones have different melting points. If you're heating it up to the melting point, is it therefore, destroying the compound? The issue is this: most ecdysterones, and bear in mind there are over 500 that have been identified. Most of them are water soluble due to the multiple hydroxyl groups that are coming off those long tails on the end of our favorite 4-carbon structures. The exception there being rubberosterone, but that's certainly the oddball of the bunch. Interestingly, though, if you dissolve 95% rhaponticum in water, and it should be white, by the way, it'll go into solution. And then, when you're mixing it around and so forth. But after that whirlpool effect ends, most of the powder settles to the bottom in the middle, which obviously is not what you want. On the other hand, if you dissolve that same compound into olive oil, it dissolves almost fully. Very little of it is left on the bottom. But hold on a minute, right? I just got done establishing most ecdysterones are water soluble. So what gives? Well, what gives is rhaponticum contains way more than just ecdysterones. It contains various flavonoids, tannins, resins, etc., not just the Ecdy. So I would tell you, if you're hell bent on doing it, then I would make it, if you're using rhaponticum, use it in an oil as opposed to a liquid. To the best of my knowledge, nobody's made anything like a rhaponticum cypionate or an anthate or other longer ester. Therefore, you're probably going to have to pin daily, or or at the very least.
Yeah, but you probably could do subcutaneous. I bet you don't even have to do intramuscular.
Oh, well, we're getting to that. At the very least, every other day. Now, I also need, though, to tell you the other side of this story, and it is this. There is one study that was published in 2018 that showed injectable subcutaneous Ecdy caused some kidney pathology. And if you, and this was done in rats, but if the rats were people, it would have only been 50 milligrams a day. If you're making an injectable ecdysterone, you should be able to get it to about 100 milligrams per milliliter. This would be just half of that. And they were administered again subcutaneously. Now, the question becomes, well, does that mean my ecdysterone is kidney toxic? No, I personally don't think that's the case, at least when you're using the compound orally. Now, I had no problems that I was aware of when I was shooting it, but to be fair, I didn't have blood work done during that time. Now, orally, Lord knows I've used more of it than most over the past 30 years. The only kidney issues I've had in those 30 years were secondary to rhabdo, okay? Or possibly caused by one of the prescription drugs that I was taking. But back to making your own. So long as you live, we're going to talk about the risks now. One of the things that appeals to people about using Ecdy as opposed to something else is that it's legal. So as long as you live in a state that allows for pens for personal use, there is very little, if any, legal risk. Everything that you need to make it, you can order yourself. The greater risk, as I see it, is getting a possible abscess or infection. And unlike Tester Clen, also understand in the risk to reward thing, you're not going to gain the dramatic amounts of muscle that you will from high doses of either of those two, which isn't to say that you won't gain anything. But you have to weigh that, right, versus the possible legal and health risk.
Well, and you know what? The other thing here if you're buying Ecdy, you're most likely buying it from another country.
Right.
And if you're buying Ecdy from another country, like say China, you don't even know. I mean, unless you're taking someone and having a mass spec it for you, if you're taking a COA from China, that's Russian roulette with your health. You don't even know if it's real.
Yeah, a C of A, to your point, proves nothing.
In China, I bought things from China, and it was clear that the COA I was getting was like, photocopied so many times that it wasn't even legible anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And the COA is good for 20 years. It's like, come on, you're going to run out before 20 years is up. What are you still using the COA with?
The best that you can do in that situation, I think, is get a third-party lab analysis corroborating.
You have to. If you're going to make your own injectables at home, you absolutely have to have somebody mass spec it for you, because you got to see what else is in there.
I have spoken over the years to one individual who really likes it and has been using it pretty much that entire time. So he makes his own injectable ecdysterone. And the question, though, is why, right? Well, the reason is he had been popped for steroid distribution years ago and was on or is still on some sort of probation, right? So he can't be shooting test, trend, deca, none of that stuff. He will shoot and prefers to shoot in isolated individual ecdysterones, such as 20-hydroxyecdysterone or cyasterone. And part of the reason why he does that, I called him up specifically for this question, was what you said prior, Carl, melting point. He says, well, at least I know I can test it and know it's, what's on the label is actually in there.
Yeah.
So we always had what you would call an interesting conversation, right? Every single time. He remains really one big, strong dude too. And when speaking to him recently, he tells me that he's still doing it, which means his legal problems go back to 2006.
Yeah, he's out of the woods with that, but he prefers to continue to use this instead of some sort of anabolic steroid.
And has been doing so for
Yeah.
15 years. So
I don't. But do you really have? I don't. You know, it's kind of like I don't think it's necessary to inject it. If you have a good quality ecdysterone, oral supplementation is proven to be effective. I don't think that you're really gaining anything, but lots of risk by injecting it, unless a compounding pharmacy is going to start making it. Keep in mind, I spoke to a compounding pharmacist when the study came out that WADA was going to say Ecdy was banned from Olympic athletes and professional athletes. And I said, there's a lot of non-athletes out there that would love to use this stuff. And he said that he could make it. He said, yeah, I'd have to get the raw materials, but we could definitely make an injectable ecdysterone. So there is a I really think there's a market for injectable. I don't understand why subcutaneously injected versus intramuscularly injected would challenge the kidneys more. That doesn't make any sense. There's some flaw. There was more to that study than meets the eye, because if you inject it in your muscles, you're injected under your skin. It doesn't pick up any special metabolites. It's not converting differently. It's not. Again, if they were starting out with a dirty raw material to start with, I don't care where you inject it, it's going to give you kidney problems. But with that being said, I think there's a market for it for average people, non-athletes.
Yeah, and in 30 years, I have never seen one thing other than this one study, showing that ecdysterone was anything but beneficial for every single organ in your body. There's an outlier there somewhere. I'll have to go back and read the whole thing, but I'm pretty sure it's a non-issue.
All right, we're going to take one more. We're going to answer one more question now. And if you have questions and you're watching on the Supreme Radio Network page, you can post them and we'll answer them. We'll go to this one, then we're going to take a quick commercial break. So this one comes from Kevin Andrews. He says, I set up bare bones home gym and not sure if I'll be going back to the place I had a membership at. One thing I found is that I'm noticeably stronger when making 1 rep max attempts in my bench press, squat, and deadlift at home. Why is this? Yeah, because you're scared crap that you're going to staple yourself to the bench. That's why.
Yeah. And so to expand on that, I have noticed this exact same thing in people and in myself. Some people lift noticeably heavier at home. Others, it's just the opposite. And it doesn't matter really which one you are. The tie that binds and what it explains it is psychology. It's what's going on in your head. People that lift noticeably heavier at home usually do so, in my opinion, because they're not concerned with what other people are going to think if you get stapled to the bench, right, and plastered and look like a fool. The damn plates could come flying off the bar and nobody's going to see it. Okay, so that I think is a big reason why they're stronger.
Well, I'd like to expand on that comment.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, because you're right. So we did a show about grunting. I was still at Clear Channel, so this had to be 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
Where I interviewed a scientist who published a study that showed that grunting while training increases strength output by as much as 5%. That's considerable. And what I learned from that study was grunting in science is called vocal disinhibition, right? Inhibition. And so the display of strength in a public forum requires you to be uninhibited, because there's lots of people who may look at you like a meathead. When you're going to do something where you're going to use as much strength as you can't be hampered by thinking, what will people think of me? Because you have to tap into everything humanly possible to move a particular weight. So your mind has to be focused on that. It can't be wondering. And what I learned from that study was strong people typically are disinhibited people. They're not worried about what other people think. So you're right. You're exactly right on this. Science has shown this. People who grunt don't give a crap what other people think while they're grunting, right? People who don't grunt, they don't want to grunt because they don't want to annoy somebody else. And we have an entire gym chain that is profited on this called Planet Fitness. I'm sorry. And so, the grunt-free zone, it's like, no, grunting is a natural byproduct of exertion. And holding back your grunting isn't going to make you stronger. It's going to make you weaker. So there is definitely a connection between the ability to be disinhibited and be strong. So you're absolutely right. In your own home, you're gonna grunt. If you fart while you're squatting, you're not gonna worry about the chick next to you who's doing Pilates. You know what I mean? You're on your own. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, and so that's people that are stronger at home for that reason. Conversely, people that are stronger in the gym,
we love attention. We love attention.
Well, not just that, but the fear of failing. That's they use that as positive pressure, right? Mm-hmm. So they go into a gym to max out. They know there's a risk they're not going to hit it, but they up their game. Okay. And I did let's say a version of this not long ago. I had a 12 workout loading pattern. I did 11 workouts, right? All of the nuts and bolts in the back room where there was nobody, trap bar deadlift. When it came to time for max day, though, I went out in the front on the deadlift platform, right in between two other groups of 20-something-year-old kids. And I nailed my 1 rep max with ease because I personally got a big kick out of lifting those kids. So what's important is not really which one you are. What is important is to know how to use this information to up your game and do well in either of your chosen environments. A few lucky people can do well in both. And I've done well in both over the years too.
Yeah, me too.
It takes a switch in psychology.
But I noticed that, like, when I'm training in the backyard, I like the idea that my neighbors are watching me.
Yeah.
I swear, I'm being honest. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I want to be honest, because just in case you're one of those people, you go, oh, I'm not a nut. Like, I like that they watching me swing that 65-pound kettlebell. I like that they watch me go up and down the street with my kettlebells in hand. I like that they see me busting out push-ups. I like that they see me, doing the things that I like. That I like an audience. I've always liked that, and I think that I'm one of those people who is definitely stronger at the gym because I like people. Because you know what? I was never a strong kid. In fact, I got my ass kicked a lot when I was a kid. It was only through humor that I learned how to assuage attacks. But then when I found out how strong I was like, holy crap, I can't believe this, that I'm squatting this or deadlifting this. And then I loved people to watch me. It was really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can use it, like I said, in different ways. The last place that I can recall using it was sled sprints. So believe it or not, I had built up to sprinting sled sprints for 15 minutes, pretty much continuous. Of course, you're stripping weight off the sled after so many trips, but the point is you keep going. I remember one day there was a football coach back there and maybe 3 or 4 of his players, and you could just see the look on their face. When is this guy going to drop?
This old guy.
Right. And so I eventually got to 15 minutes, but I'll tell you, I'll be honest and just say that helped. Hey, let's watch we'll see when the old guy's going to drop. Oh my God.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Look, Patrick Rogers, he's one of us. We know that. I like my neighbors thinking I'm crazy. I hear you, man.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yep.
I hear you. So, this is great stuff. It's all about being honest too on the show. You know what? We want to share information that people can use. I've actually pooped squatting one time, so I will be honest about that. That's why I learned that before I used to go in and squat heavy, I always had that pre-game poop before I walked into the gym because I didn't want to have squats turn into squirts. So That's not a good thing.
Oh,
All right,
wow.
we're gonna take a quick commercial break on that note. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. I love beef. And if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to PIEDMONTESE.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at Synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom-made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Hey, this is Carl. For 14 years, you've heard me talk about Can-C eye drops, and they being the reason that I do not need reading glasses at now 61 years old. But I regularly get emails and messages from people who've been using Can-C and having some amazing results. Recently, I got an email from a fellow named Chad, who, because he was on dexamethasone eye drops for over 6 months, developed a cataract. Can-C eye drops actually reduced my cataract to the point where even my doctor has a hard time finding it. I will never stop using Can-C eye drops twice a day. I've been using them since 2008, he says. And you should be too. There is no better way to keep your eyes healthy and seeing clearly than Can-C eye drops. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com today and get on board, and we will both be looking into the future with very clear vision. Redcon One is one of the fastest growing supplement companies in the world today. That's because they produce supplements that deliver on their promises. From their flagship pre-workout Total War to their innovative whole food MREs and bars. Now you can get the deepest discount ever offered to any audience anywhere. Use code SHR and get 25% off all Redcon One products today. SHR and 25% off. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. Just a quick reminder to those of you watching the show live to share the show with your friends and family. Superhumanradio.net now has the videos that we do on Facebook. So if you go to a particular show and click on that page, you'll not only find the MP3 version that you can download, the MP3 version that you can listen to on the site, but you'll also find the video of the live event as well. So we're just trying to add content that people can use. So again, invite your friends to superhumanradio.net. Let them check out the shows. Also, later in the show today, I'm going to do another rant. I've been doing them at the end of each show because I have a lot of opinions and I'm starting to try to get them out there. But we're going to talk about the real heroes of this pandemic. And it's not who you think it is. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. The next question comes from Mike Kellogg. He says, I like your approach to things, in particular supplements. He's talking to you, obviously, Rob, not me. But what's out there today? What's out there today is kind of murky. You have gray market stuff and even stuff that's supposed to be illegal, like Clen, but clearly sold by most research chemical places. What's up with this?
Yeah, well, it's a really interesting question, right? And so what we're talking about is where do we all draw the line, right? On what we use, what we decide to order, et cetera, et cetera. So in my younger years, I can tell you, I only had one single criteria, on whether or not I was going to use something, and that was legality. Just didn't want to take the risk of the black market. To be totally honest with you, safety was a distant second, right? You're young, you think you're indestructible, so safety is not an issue, frankly, that ever factored much into the equation. Until supplements came on the market that actually worked. And so you could get away with the triple the dose, hope for the most mentality with things like dibencoxide or frac, ferulic acid. Try that with ephedrine, though, and trust me, it'll leave an impression, and not a good one. You'll learn not to do that. Today, I would tell you the situation's obviously a lot different. I'm 50 years old. I have a son. I have a wife. I have responsibilities. And so safety and legality, I would say, are of equal importance, so to speak. So it's not always that simple, though, as your question alludes to. And I'm going to use your example of Clen because it's a good one. Clenbuterol is listed by the letter of the law in the original Anabolic Steroid Control Act, way back of 1990 or 91 or something. Although it's not a steroid, as I mentioned before, it's a beta-2 agonist. It's an asthma type medication. Nevertheless, it is listed in there and lumped into the same category as things like Trenbolone. Despite that fact, research chemical sites are selling it, and people are ordering it and using it. No different than going to Amazon and buying creatine. Why this is, I am not entirely sure. You couldn't do that, for example, with A-bombs or tescipionate. At least you couldn't do it for long before you got caught, and then the penalties are real stiff. And remember, Clen is in the same area as the steroids are, Schedule 3. So, and Clen being available is something that, from what I've seen, has been going on for years. Now, I've used plenty of peptides, and I've benefited from them. Although those are technically illegal to sell as a supplement.
To sell over the counter without a prescription, exactly.
Right. Because, as we know, some of the more progressive longevity clinics and doctors are carrying peptides, thankfully. Let's see, other examples. I have ordered and used modafinil, which is technically a Schedule 4 drug in the United States, available only by prescription. I guess the new criteria then for me is as follows. It has to have a reasonable safety profile and a very low risk of legal consequences, if somebody wants to make an issue about it. I would tell you that if you have anything to lose, and I think we all do, including our freedom, don't play in the Schedule 3 area, where admittedly most of the fun stuff is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just how it goes. Never forget, though, the one thing that you can't buy, and that is health, good health.
Yeah.
Any compound you use should have that reasonable safety profile that I mentioned, which means you don't screw around with things like DNP. Again, that line is different for everyone, and it's going to be different for you at age 25 than it will at age 45.
But I also would say I would put Clen in that category. People are way too willy-nilly about taking clenbuterol. Clenbuterol has been shown in numerous studies to damage the heart, and especially in the doses that bodybuilders take them for fat loss. Clenbuterol has been shown to actually accumulate necrotic tissue in cardiomyocytes. It's a horrible drug. And to this day, I've been talking about this for a long time. I know 3 bodybuilders who all have cardiomyopathy today, and I know it's because of their Clen.
And you're absolutely right. Clen's cardiotoxicity showed up some time ago, so it shouldn't be a mystery to anyone. Now, I do get a lot of questions like this. Will 2 weeks hurt me? My gut feeling is probably not. 2 weeks, once a year, twice a year, probably not gonna result in any long-lasting damage. But the operative word there is probably.
Because you could have an underlying issue and be more susceptible to the changes. The other thing that does that, quite frankly, is trenbolone. People have to understand that trenbolone increases pulmonary hypertension, blood pressure between the heart and the lungs. Yeah. It's why you could be and I've experienced this myself. When I was living in Arizona, I was going hiking every single day for cardio up a couple different mountains there. And then I started a 600 milligram a week enanthate cycle along with everything else I was taking. Literally in 2 days, I was winded. I couldn't even go up those mountains anymore. So, that's another one that causes a lot of tension in the heart and it could lead to cardiomyopathy. And, your brain and your heart, you can't live without those 2 things, your brain and your heart. And unfortunately, your heart is at the mercy of your brain when you make stupid decisions. Clen and DNP is horrible. DNP works because of its toxicity. It causes mitochondrial uncoupling. It makes the mitochondria work harder. It's like taking your car and welding the axles and then driving it, and it's got to struggle just to turn the wheels like that. That's going to burn out your engine. Your car's not going to last long. And people who take DNP for its weight loss are just dumb. I'm sure that if you drank small amounts, if you microdosed petrol, gasoline, it probably would cause something favorable in your body recomposition. But would you do that? Would you really do that? Yeah. And sadly, I think there's people who would, quite frankly.
Well, there are people desperate to lose fat. But, if that all didn't dissuade you from using it, maybe these 2 things will. Number 1, there's no known antidote. They get you to the hospital, they're probably going to put you inside a tub of ice.
Right.
But there's
watch you die. And
number 2, not only do you die, it's an excruciating death by all accounts. It's like being microwaved. Think about that. From the inside out, you're frying yourself. For what? For what?
I've never done Clen, not once. Never done Clen. I've never done DNP, not once. And there's a lot of people, if they looked at the drugs I have done, both recreational and enhance and sport or anabolic enhancing drugs. I've done a lot of stuff that people probably go, "Oh my God, are you crazy?" Yeah. No, I'm not crazy. I understand the risks of everything I take, and I would never take Clen and I would never take DNP. That should tell you something right there.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say about Clen, it is just a note of interest. For the longest time, the studies showing muscle growth were only in animals. They just got done wrapping one up where it happens in humans as well.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, but it only happens for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then it wears off.
Yep.
We have a question from a listener, Tommy D. We'll get that up there real quick. Then we'll go on to the next predetermined question, and then we'll take a break for the blueprint tip of the day.
Sure.
Tommy says, I've been able to get the most of the number 9 and 10 difficulty exercises out of convict conditioning specified in the book over the years. However, the one-arm handstand push-up seems elusive as ever. Been stuck at number 8 for years. Your 2 cc's on what is the truly attainable this particular exercise? Thanks. Yeah, could it be that the book has something in there that no one will ever actually attain?
Well, that's a good point. The author claims that he was able to do them. Whether you believe that or not, I don't know. I don't know that it matters. I will say this. In all the years that it's been out, in all the research that I've done, I have not found one person online that can do one. I've seen some people who can maybe go halfway, but really ask yourself, if you're able to get to step 7, 8, or 9 on a one-arm handstand push-up, my God, you're in the top 0.5%, right, of the population. So what I would tell you is don't give up. Keep hammering.
But don't be let down either.
Yeah, but don't be let down. It's like, oh God, I got all the rest of these, but not the one-arm handstand push-up. Well,
BFD.
Right.
BFD,
And the same thing goes for a couple other movements in there, like people that can do a one-arm push-up with both feet together touching. I haven't seen it other than some really ugly twisting versions. But again, don't let that get you down, man. You keep going, and keep trying. Because if there's one thing that'll make you successful in this game, it's showing up and being relentless about achieving your goals.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep.
That's good. All right, the next question comes from, let's see here, Mike Kellogg. No, we just did him. I'm sorry. The next question actually comes from Kevin Lawson. So Kevin says, where do most of the steroids in this country come from? I ask because after Operation Gear Grinder and others, I would think feds made major dent in their availability. Is the stuff out there today even real? Are they arresting anyone?
Yeah, I'm not the guy, because of the decisions that I made, right? The legality thing. I'm not the guy to know what's going on, up to the minute in the black market, where the stuff comes from. I can tell you that it only takes a little bit of reading to figure out what was going on, and what may be going on today and in the future. So, here are some observations. Observation number 1, there's still plenty of gear out there for sale, right? And it's the demand isn't going anywhere. Observation number 2, at least some of the stuff being made and used is real, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't have as many people ordering, reordering, and getting good results. And observation number 3, whenever the feds or whoever bust underground labs, it puts a temporary dent in the supply chain. So look, this is whack-a-mole. This is the government playing whack-a-mole with steroids. Whenever someone gets popped, there's still someone else waiting to fill that void.
Yeah,
now,
usually 3 people that were working with that lab. And we use the word underground lab gratuitously because these are usually made in someone's kitchen.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, and the saving grace is the benzyl alcohol and the extreme heat for hours that they undergo that removes any pathogens or anything harmful from these products. Dr. Mauro Di Pasquale did a little research on his own probably 15, 18 years ago and found out the most worrisome part of underground labs is the stoppers being contaminated that go on after all the stuff is clean. And like as long as they're getting sterile stoppers and they're handling it properly, and again, even then, the benzyl alcohol, if they're using somewhere around 3% benzyl, it's going to kill just about anything that gets in there.
Yeah, and like you said, thank God for that. Otherwise, more guys would be getting more abscesses.
Yeah. Well, we call them underground labs, and people think of these big. Now, don't get me wrong. There are big operations, usually outside the United States. There are big operations, and maybe some in the United States too. I don't want to take anything away from the USA as being competitive in this corrupt industry, but But the reality is we call these places underground labs. And if you walked into one, you would hardly call it a lab.
Yeah. Kitchen chemistry. Okay. So having said all of that, the new wrinkles in the game are as follows. In the past, it was pretty clear the raw powders, the raw materials for steroids were coming into the country after being manufactured in China, which is not unusual. China makes all of our prescription drugs. China makes, almost every SARM and other things out there on the market. So we got tons coming in from that country. As of January 2020, some pretty tough new laws have been passed that are taking effect in China, dictating chemical supply companies no longer make the stuff.
Hmm.
Now, I would expect, as I just pointed out, that another country is going to step in to fill that void, right? It's just supply and demand. It probably won't be Mexico. Been there, done that. It probably won't be any of the European countries. Ditto. That's happened too. It's anyone's guess who's next. But one thing is for certain, right? Wherever there's a demand,
Yeah.
someone's going to step up with the supply. That's just
Right.
how it is.
Right.
Now, a cursory Google search reveals steroid busts and prosecutions, they're still happening, albeit nothing like it was in the 2004 to 2010 timeframe. They were a real hot potato then. President Bush was talking about them in his State of the Union address, and the government was all bent out of shape about the issue because of what was going on in baseball, in professional baseball. Now, it seems, though, looking at these busts, most of the cases fall into two categories. One, companies actually selling supplements containing anabolics that may or may not be on the label. And two, busts of these so-called longevity clinics, most of which are in Florida, selling gear on the side, or in rare cases, they were selling it right on the website. And believe you me, Florida is the place to do this. They have laws on the books, or lack of them, as the case may be, where it did not preclude convicted felons from running these websites or posing as doctors. So the problem for you and the end user then is really twofold. One, the way the laws have been rewritten, people ordering in the past what would have been personal use amounts, because of the way they're counting it now, it's enough for a distribution charge. Okay, big difference in the sentencing guidelines. And number two, although law enforcement has lately gone after under the big fish, you never truly know, right? Who's going to make an issue of what? I'm going to give you one good example because I took this right out of Rick Collins's book, Legal Muscle. And so don't think it doesn't happen. Let's say you live in a sleepy little town, right? Nothing's going on. And you regularly order gear through the mail. Your local rank and file detective has nothing else going on, and he wants to make it to a higher rank or otherwise get promoted. And so one day he gets an alert from customs that someone in town has ordered steroids, and they have the proof after opening the package. And the detective then arranges for, let's say, a controlled delivery,
Right.
Which leads to a search warrant, which usually leads to other drugs being discovered in the home. And so now this cop, who before had nothing going on, he's got a high profile bust on his resume because steroids, they're great headlines.
Yeah.
They're going to show up in the hometown newspaper, probably on the front page when the bust is made, which that officer will try to use to parlay into a promotion. And again, don't think it doesn't happen. This is just one example. It's not far-fetched. It's happened before. So whatever you do, whatever decision you make, stay informed, stay safe, and you can never know enough about the topic, I think, to play that game. If that's the game you want to be in, then knowledge is power.
I will say this: there's plenty of gear still out there.
Right.
Is it real? I will tell you this: that when it comes to injectables, a lot of it is just testosterone cypionate or enanthate if it's coming from Europe.
Right.
If it's coming from Europe, it's always enanthate. They don't use cypionate there. That's a telltale sign of where your gear is coming from. But the more exotic forms, now trenbolone, you can't lie about it because it's yellow. Trenbolone is always going to be yellow because the base powder is yellow. So if it's real Tren. If it's clear and a golden straw colored, no. If it's yellow, like really yellow, it's real Tren. But with that being said, if you're ordering Masteron, you're probably getting testosterone. If you're ordering, I don't know, Primobolan, you're probably getting testosterone. I know women who have thought they were ordering less androgenic anabolics. These were female competitors, and they had all the signs that they were getting testosterone.
Yeah.
So it's a crapshoot. Now there are reliable dealers out there that have been doing business literally for years and been uninterrupted by any of this. Porter Cottrell doesn't use anything illegal anymore. He's retired. He stays in great shape, and he doesn't need that crap. But he came on my show in 2005 or 2006 and talked about the anabolic steroid cycles that he used when he competed at the Olympia. And they were nothing compared to what guys are using today. Nothing like that. But he said, if you're going to buy underground gear and a source that's reliable, you don't buy a little bit he says, and I'll never forget it. He said it exactly like this. He goes, if you need 80 bottles for the year, buy all 80 bottles, because he said, and I had a drink on the counter where I was doing the show. He said, if you look the other way and I grab that drink and I take a sip and put it down and I don't get caught, he says, but if I try to do that two or three times in a row, I increase my risk of getting caught. And I said, yeah, you're right. So he said, you buy what you need, and you don't do this stuff where every couple of weeks you're ordering more, or every couple of months. Put your money together, make your buy, be done with it.
Yeah, and I would be remiss not to wrap this up by saying, and this is personal opinion, it is ridiculous that we are locking people up whose biggest crime is they want to put some size on their arms or pounds on their bench press. Nobody on steroids is knocking over 7-Elevens or robbing banks, right, to get their fix.
Well, and let's not forget that you can go to a plastic surgeon and have breast implants and butt implants, have your face completely changed. You could, as an athlete, you can go as a pitcher, you can go to a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, have the ligaments in your arm rerouted so that you pitch better. If you're a golfer, you can go have radiokeratotomy to improve your eyesight. I mean, if anabolic steroids are cheating, then all those things are cheating too. Hell, let's go ahead and throw in birth control. So, you want to have sex, but you don't want to have a baby. Birth control, that's not a life-saving procedure. That's an economic decision. I just don't want to have a baby right now. And that's why it's so stupid today, the way our government works. But it's easy to see what motivates them. It comes down to money. It comes down to industries that pay the VIG, that pay what they have to do, or if it's tax, like tobacco kills 1.5 million people a year. Right. I wonder if we're ever going to say, wow, now that we're done with COVID-19, we got to get rid of tobacco. No, they're not going to do that. Why? Because the government would lose literally billions of dollars if people stopped smoking themselves to death.
Yep. Yeah.
It's just so disingenuous. And that's why critical thinkers, we become so frustrated, because we keep thinking that there's some sort of logic behind what they do. There's no logic. It's all about money.
It's money, and it's just misguided. Look, the laws were originally written because of quote unquote cheating in sports. You
I'm sorry.
can't name one professional athlete, I can anyway, that's done any significant jail time for steroids. But there's a million, not a million, but a lot of guys who have good jobs, own their homes, have families, who got pinched for this stuff, and they're serving prison sentences.
Well, think about that. Barry Bonds didn't go to jail.
Right.
Flojo didn't go to jail.
Right.
None of those people went to jail when they tested positive for drugs. They just got a slap on the hand. They didn't get their medal. They were moved from first place to fifth place. They didn't go to jail. But you some poor schmuck, you're a fireman and you're trying to stay in shape. You want to stay strong because you got to lift bodies and run out of burning buildings. And you're like, I'm going to add a little test to my life once a week, maybe 200, 500 milligrams. And you get caught. You go to jail. That's what I'm saying. It's just, if you look for logic in the way governments run things, you'll be frustrated for the rest of your life. You just got to understand. And you know what? I bought a URL called Power is in the Base because I always thought I was going to start a website where people could get together and pay, I don't know, $69 a year to belong and choose the things that they're interested in. And we could actually go out and buy lobbyists to lobby for testosterone and anabolic steroids. See, then we would get paid attention to. If we had a lobbyist group that was sitting down with a politician and saying, these laws are unfair the way, and by the way, we've got $50,000 to give you this year to help you with your campaign. You'd see how fast the people will go up to, well, we need to change these here laws that these poor men are going to jail for just taking a little testosterone. I'm telling you, this is how it works. You can bitch about it. You can understand that it's incorrect. You can understand that it's wrong, or you can get up and do something and play the game the way they play the game.
Yeah, buy it.
Let's do it.
Well,
if any of you are interested in starting a lobbyist group to fight for the things that are important to us, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. We'll find a lobbyist group. We'll figure out how to do it. We'll move forward. Maybe in a couple of years, we'll actually have some clout up on Capitol Hill.
It is very true that no amount of complaining that we do is going to help, keep our supplements legal. If you look at the cases rather, where that's we have been successful in keeping it legal, like Creighton, it takes a well-oiled political machine,
right,
in Washington, D.C. and in every state, such that our voices are heard and we can actually get something done. Me griping about it on SHR isn't really going to help. Sad as it is to say. And as true as it is what I just said, it's not gonna change things.
Here, Scott Lawless said we have two comments. Then we're going to take a break, and we'll come back with the BluePrint tip of the day. He says, if you have the money, you can get out of the consequences. That's not completely true. I've been doing some investigating journalism, and it's not completely true. But in most cases, I'd say 90% of the time, it's correct.
Yeah.
The money is going against compounding pharmacies and peptides right now. Money equals a stored form of power. Absolutely true. Yeah. Absolutely true. And then Patrick Rogers says, well, farmers have some of the best lobbyists. They are protected by the government. So tobacco will probably never go away. You're absolutely right. And it's not just the farmers, Patrick. It's the tobacco industry. It's the companies that actually manufacture cigarettes. I'm sure they put hundreds of millions of dollars into lobbying and buying, because otherwise it doesn't make sense why, if our government is so concerned about human life, why they wouldn't go, I think it's time to do away with tobacco. We lose 1.5 million people a year to tobacco. That's a lot of people. Right. And yeah, I guess it is. And I know how to do it. You make tobacco, you make it a controlled substance. People have to go in and get a prescription to buy cigarettes. You can even make the cigarettes cheaper by doing this, believe it or not. But you just don't make them readily available at stores anymore, where kids go, I think I'm going to start smoking. I'm going to go.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it's easy to do. Yeah, this is why he says, this is why hemp is getting made legal. Farmers are getting on that bandwagon. And now you're right. Farmers are smart. They're smart. They have lobbyists. It's brilliant. It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with the BluePrint tip of the day. Then later in the show, I got a rant for you about the real heroes of this pandemic. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. How often do you sit with your laptop right on your lap? How much time do you spend on your cell phone? Are you in a technology-packed office Monday through Friday? Are you worried about this type of radiation? Now there's something you can do about it. GetLambs.com. This radiation has been linked to infertility in men, glandular tumors, gut microbiome dysbioses, and impaired sleep quality. Now you can provide 360-degree protection to at-risk parts of your body with radiation-proof apparel from GetLambs.com. Comfortable, breathable, and 99% effective. Go to GetLambs.com and use coupon code SHR for 20% off your order of $100 or more. That's GetLambs.com, GetLambs.com, and code SHR. Ever wish there was a precise way to gauge your recovery from workout to workout? Or wonder if the money you're spending on your nootropic supplements are actually improving brain function? Maybe you're aging and you're noticing some changes in memory. Wouldn't being able to really test your brain be of great value? Well, now you can with great accuracy with the Brain Gauge. The Brain Gauge lets you test essential components of brain health and track your brain health history, and all in the comfort of your own home. Go to GaugeYourBrain.com and use code SHR for $150 off this amazing device. That's GaugeYourBrain.com and SHR for $150 off. Crank your muscle gains to new heights by transforming every gram of protein you eat into 3 grams with Masszymes. With 100,000 HUTs of protease per capsule, Masszymes increases your absorption of key amino acids, resulting in stronger, healthier digestion of proteins and certain vitamins that not only multiplies the impact of the protein you eat, but can also repair a damaged intestinal wall. Go to Masszymes Flash, SHR for 10% off. That's MASSZYMES.com /SHR.
7,451. That's how many people kick the bucket, buy the farm, or cash in their chips every day in the United States. Yep, that means 5 people are going to meet their maker during this commercial. And no, our commercials are not the cause. Half of those who punch the clock for the final time will do so without life insurance. Call Big Lou at Term Provider before you're number 7452. If you're a 50-year-old male, a tad porky with a touch of diabetes, $1 million of term life insurance may only cost about $200 a month. With more verified 5-star reviews than any other Lou on the radio, Big Lou has saved thousands of people thousands on their term insurance premiums. Stop procrastinating and call Big Lou today at 800-560-0301. 800-560-0301. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He doesn't want to be number 7,452. Call 800-560-0301 or biglou.com.
Men and women, you've heard about hormone optimization. Do you feel like it's something you want to look into? RenewLifeRx.com is the place to start. Their doctors can help you with the solutions. RenewLifeRx.com has a simple process for lab work, consultation, and taking a deep dive into where your hormone levels can be improved. Superhuman Radio listeners get 30% off your initial lab work and consultation. Go to RenewLifeRx.com to schedule your no-obligation phone consultation today. Feel younger, get in better shape, and be more productive at RenewLifeRx.com.
Are you still on the fence about body protection complex BPC oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus lifting company gym in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. You know, I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, you know, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do those with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, drseeds.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back. Before we get on to the BluePrint tip of the day, Scott Lawler posted something I find very fascinating. I want to put it up here. He says, I remember from a Peter Attia podcast where the guest was talking about how the tobacco industry accepted the ban on TV ads because the requirement was going to be for every tobacco ad, a counter ad had to be run right afterwards. And in the models and focus groups, it was devastating towards sales. So they accepted the ban because they knew that if they said, no, we want to keep advertising, it was actually going to hurt them because of the new follow-up ad that they were going to have to run saying tobacco sucks.
Yeah.
And so, and the reality is it doesn't make sense for a government to support something that kills 1.5 million people a year, especially they don't just die, right? They get sick, and then healthcare has to take care of them for sometimes decades before they die. And again, our government, all governments, and the United States is no different. All governments, they literally teeter on being that movie Idiocracy. There's sensible things that they do, and then there's things that you go, wow, these people are either so stupid or so corrupt, and we know it's not this. They're not stupid. We know they're corrupt. It's the fact. But yeah, no, that's really fascinating. Scott, I did not know that, but that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the blueprint tip of the day, what is it, Rob?
The tip of the day is why strength training trumps bodybuilding. This is obviously an opinion piece, but I want you to listen to some of the reasons why I think this is so. So we're talking about two birds, right? But of a different feather. On the one hand, you have strength training. On the other, bodybuilding. To the general public, and even many gym goers, they make no distinction, right? Both involve going to the gym, both involve lifting weights, and both involve growing muscle. But as we're about to see, strength training is far more measurable, sustainable, and in my opinion, because of those two things, more rewarding than bodybuilding ever could be. First, let's look at bodybuilding. So the goal is to build, right, one's muscles to the greatest degree possible while simultaneously lowering one's body fat, right, to show the muscle in its most favorable or prominent light. Now, yes, there are other things such as symmetry, etc., that people give lip service to, but at the highest levels of the sport, it's all about who can grow the most muscle and present it with razor sharp definition. But because muscle growth is such a slow process, it's difficult to measure. The best you can do is to, let's say, get a body comp analysis done at regular intervals, let's say every 3 months or so. That would probably be the most frequently you could measure actual pounds of muscle, right, coming onto you. And that's obviously past the newbie stage, but still, it's a glacier-like pace. Because the process is slow, people are more apt to do things to speed it up, read anabolic steroids and other stuff. The reality, though, is that most people aren't getting their body comp measurements done, and instead they rely on the mirror or a scale to gauge progress, which is a really bad move, using either one of them. Because if you have a bad day at the office or get into a fight with your significant other or you blow your diet, well, guess what? All of that is going to carry over into your self-assessment of yourself in the mirror. And I think we can agree, all of us, or at least most of us, we are our own harshest critics, especially when looking into that mirror. As for the scale, it may register a gain of 10 pounds in those 3 months, but we know what the story is there. Is it 10 pounds of muscle, 10 pounds of fat, or some sort of mix? You'll never know which one, and therefore can't determine what, if anything, about your training and diet to change. Strength training, on the other hand, it's a totally different animal, if you ask me, because the goal is quite simple: get stronger. That's it. Get stronger every time you go to the gym. Now, that is a decidedly much faster process than growing pounds of muscle that'll register on a scale. Because you can register a strength increase on a monthly, weekly, or even in some cases on a workout to workout basis. There is nothing subjective about it. It's no judge or other person looking at you and saying, well, they're big, but they're carrying a lot of body fat, or he's not quite as symmetrical as the next. No, there's none of that nonsense, right? You either lifted more weight for more reps or both this week than you did last week. And unlike bodybuilding, some of my strongest workouts anyway came directly after a bad day at the office, a fight I got into, with my significant other, et cetera, et cetera. And why is that?
Not Jennifer.
No.
I just want to qualify that. Well, you're talking about a previous significant other.
Right. The previous Jennifer, ex-wife Jennifer. Right. But you got to ask yourself, why did that happen? How is that? Well, it's because I took my anger to the gym and I took it out on the weights, right? I didn't punch a wall, something that's going to destroy property and probably break my hand. I didn't swear at someone and run them down, words that will damage long after physical wounds are done. I went to the gym and I took it out on the weights. And I left that gym a stronger and a better person for it. Strength training as well, you're not as tempted to use, let's call it steroids or other bodybuilding drugs, because as someone once said to me, he asked the question, are you getting stronger from week to week? Yep. Okay, then you're making progress. Why do you need those things? You're registering progress every week that you go to the gym. It's tangible. I can see it. I can feel it. I can experience it. That always stuck with me as well as this line. Guy said to me once, can you lift just one more pound in that exercise than you do now? And it goes through your mind, well, of course I can. And it's true. Most people, if I put 300 pounds on the bar to bench, cannot tell the difference between 300, 301, or 299. It's just, you're not that sensitive to it. But if the answer to that question is yes, I can add one more pound, then you haven't maxed out your genetics. And only when you do can we have the discussion about using these other substances. Those two things, not only did I never forget them, they were never far from my mind. I think about both of them every time I set foot in the gym. And especially if I miss something, I get discouraged. So those are some other qualifiers about strength training and how I think and why I think they're better than bodybuilding. There's something else, though, that you'll notice about strength training versus bodybuilding, something that I'm reminded of every time that I go to the gym, or I used to go to my gym, okay? Up on the wall, right in front of the water cooler, are probably pictures of 24 bodybuilders in their best condition. Every one of them garnered a trophy, a title, or were covered in the magazines. At one time, most of them trained at our gym. And even, some pros, and I don't mean, obscure pros back in the day. Their heyday wasn't all that long ago either, maybe 10 to 15 years ago. Out of those 24 men, I can tell you only 2 of them are still training. The rest, each one of them has a story. But the bottom line is they're no longer in the game. Some got injured and just never made it back from that injury. Some couldn't stand being on the drugs any longer. Their bodies just couldn't take it. And they found, and likewise, a lot of them found out that training without them is no fun. So I'm either going to train with them or I'm not going to train at all. Believe it or not, that's a frequent situation. One of them had died, which I guess you'd expect, right? I mean, 10, 15 years ago, everyone, whether they have friends that lift or use drugs or not, that's going to be the case. 4 were busted for possession of anabolics, 2 for dealing. 1 became a chiropractor. Yeah. And so, look, the point I'm trying to make is almost without exception, these men, for whatever reason, couldn't continue bodybuilding, at least at this very high level. So they dropped it altogether. Men of the same age group that practice strength training, though, almost to a person, they're still in the game.
Yeah.
Okay. I can think of at least 3 men in our gym that are 70 or older that still train heavy, and I mean heavy. And many more that don't train quite as heavier, but heavier than most bodybuilders I know in the gym, guys that are a lot younger. Some of them have injuries, yes, but they work around them. I talked to many of these men, and the reason I did is this. They hold the secrets to training for a lifetime. And those secrets, from what I've been able to tell, they boil down to 3 things. 1, they never stop challenging themselves, right? One could no longer squat real heavy. He squatted over 600 pounds in his day. He can no longer do that. So what he does instead is he squats 225 for max reps. And I got to tell you, after he passes the 2025 mark, it's fun watching people stop everything they're doing and watching this dude go and go and go. Number 2, these people never really went through these wild fluctuations in muscle mass. Notice I didn't say weight, muscle mass. That usually goes hand in hand with sloppy drug use, where guys put on, let's say, 20, 30 or more pounds in a short time, and then they lose it just as fast as when they come off. And finally, the third reason, these men seem to understand that by getting stronger, they'll eventually get bigger. You know, why so many trainees try to prove otherwise is beyond me. Look, a size increase is almost always preceded by a strength increase. Lifting heavier weights is the trigger for a muscle to grow. Yes, you can argue time under tension. Yes, you can argue there are different ways of doing it. But getting stronger is the trigger for getting bigger. If it wasn't, you could get weaker and get bigger. Go ahead, go looking for that. You know, you're not going to find it. There's nobody that gets weaker that gets bigger. It's always the opposite. So those are just a few things to ponder as you make your next moves as we come out of this whole COVID-19 thing. And trust me, age 25 becomes 50 faster than you can ever imagine, right?
It could become 60 faster than you think. I'll be 62 in a couple. What's this? This is April. I mean March, April, May, 3 months. I'll be 62.
Wow. And so, but the point is getting there to that age in a healthy physical state, yes, but also a healthy mental state is the key, right? As is seeing progress regularly along that road. And strength training does that. Bodybuilding, not always. It just seems to me it's a lot more, let's call it fragile endeavor than strength training would ever be. So
I lost 100 pounds focusing on strength.
Wow. See, that's
because
I wish more people.
And the reason for that was if I was just focusing on body fat changes, I would have become disappointed in the first few months. I would thought I'm never going to be able to lose any body fat. But I focused on getting stronger. And every week I had new goals that I was meeting. And it's those short-term goals that lead to long-term goals. You know, you can't just focus on leaving New York and getting to California. You got to think about driving through the states you're going to be driving through. And so by me looking at, my squat got better and I got stronger in the squat, I got stronger in the deadlift, I was able to do cardio for longer. It was those small progressive changes that were the day-to-day, week-to-week goals that kept me going. And I just happened to lose 100 pounds of body fat.
And so after your first big drop of, 20, 30 pounds, how long did it take for you to recognize the next noticeable decrease? Because I think that
I gotta tell you, I thought about this just recently because I talked about it on an interview the other day.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you how the body fat came off. All I can tell you is that I went from not squatting at all to squatting 400 pounds very quickly. And I went from not deadlifting. I remember Jeff Rui. You know, I said to Jeff, a good friend of mine, he owned the gym that I trained at. It was a powerhouse gym.
Yeah.
Ex-Army Ranger, super duper great guy, super strong, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Dangerous human being. And I said to him, I said, Jeff, I don't know how to deadlift. And he set me up. He says, okay, sit back on your heels. He goes, now just stand up. And I remember that was it. I mean, my deadlift went the fastest. My deadlift went faster than my squat. I mean, I was pulling 405 very, very, very soon after I learned how to deadlift.
Wow.
So that's all I focused on. All I ever focused on was getting stronger. I just wanted to get stronger. And in fact, I didn't want to lose weight. I wanted to become bigger and more muscular. So that's all I focused on.
Yeah, and for people that that do use the scale or do just focus on losing weight, they're going to have periods of time where you hit a plateau and things are stagnant, or you yo-yo, right, and you put some fat back on. I think being able to stay in the game is all about what do you do during those periods in between when the scale isn't moving or it's moving in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is exactly what you said. You get stronger every single week. And whether people believe it or not, the muscle that you're ultimately building, is going to burn more fat at rest 24/7, right? And my question for you would be, how did you figure out that was the correct path to take?
No, that isn't, because I was interested in getting stronger. That's all I was interested in. I wanted to be able to squat, 500 pounds. I remember my earliest recollection was squatting 315. I wanted to be able to squat 315. I wanted to deadlift some sort of heavy weight. I never had the number in my head initially. I just wanted to be super strong and super fit. That's all I cared about. So the things that I judged my progress on were all those types of metrics. I didn't judge my progress on the scale. I didn't care about the scale. I never did. In fact, when you were just asking that question, I was thinking to myself, when did I notice? Because I remember that I was 330. I remember getting on the scale in the bathroom one day and seeing I was 330. In fact, 330 was how high the scale went. And then it started going into 0 again. And, it was creeping up towards the 0. And so I just remember, I remember the scale. It was a Dyna something scale we bought. It was just big, ornate looking scale. And so I decided that I just wanted to get stronger. I didn't get on the scale regularly at all throughout the whole process. I didn't.
And so consider this. Your simple goal was to get stronger. And 14 years later, you're running the premier bodybuilding or podcast.
No, it's not a bodybuilding. This is fitness, health, and anti-aging. I mean, I'm not a bodybuilder at all. I mean, I'm not I give bodybuilders a lot of credit because their dedication to nutrition is profound. And that's really where the magic comes. But anyway, we gotta move on. I gotta take a break. I gotta come back and talk about my little bit of a rant today. I want to thank you so much for all the hard work you do and the questions you answer. I want to also thank the guests who ask questions live. I appreciate the involvement. It makes the show much richer with you than without you. Scott Lawler, I haven't seen your name before. I hope you come back and listen to more episodes with us. Coach, great stuff, brother.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to just take a real quick commercial break, and when we come back, you're going to listen to me explain who the real heroes of this pandemic are. Stay tuned. I love beef, and if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to Piedmontese.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor? Strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. How often do you sit with your laptop right on your lap? How much time do you spend on your cell phone? Are you in a technology-packed office Monday through Friday? Are you worried about this type of radiation? Now there's something you can do about it. GetLambs.com. This radiation has been linked to infertility in men, glandular tumors, gut microbiome dysbioses, and impaired sleep quality. Now you can provide 360-degree protection to at-risk parts of your body with radiation-proof apparel from GetLambs.com. Comfortable, breathable, and 99% effective. Go to GetLambs.com and use coupon code SHR for 20% off your order of $100 or more. That's GetLambs.com, GetLambs.com, and code SHR. Crank your muscle gains to new heights by transforming every gram of protein you eat into 3 grams with Masszymes. With 100,000 HUTs of protease per capsule, Masszymes increases your absorption of key amino acids, resulting in stronger, healthier digestion of proteins and certain vitamins that not only multiplies the impact of the protein you eat, but can also repair a damaged intestinal wall. Go to Masszymes/SHR for 10% off. That's MASSZYMES.com/SHR. You've heard about blood flow restriction training since 2006 on SHR, but you're still on the fence. Well, here's the push. BFR is more effective at building muscle than anabolic steroids. That's right, I went there, but it's because it's the truth. My experience with the Be Strong blood flow restriction system is proof to me, and now I'm asking myself why I waited so long. You'll see undeniable changes in the targeted muscles in days and weeks like nothing you've ever tried before. I will never stop using them. Give Be Strong a try. Go to bestrong.training/super-human and use code SHR for 10% off. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of. Having started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. First of all, I got to acknowledge Scott Lawler again. He appreciated the shout out. He says, I am mainly a podcast guy. I happened to catch the live stream today. I'm mainly a peptide recovery focused guy. BPC lets me treat my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it's a damn miracle drug. TRT and the occasional Anavar help me too. I've listened to almost every Pep Talk episode you've made, and we got another one coming up next Friday on another peptide that may have some really, really valuable anti-aging effects. I'm not going to say anything else than that because I always want I have to tell you, I have people who rip me off all the time, and that's okay. You know, I mean, I've been doing this for 14 years, and it's happened more than once. In the past, anytime I've said, I'm going to be doing a show about this next week, somebody else jumped out, and it was something obscure that I know they didn't know about. The bro science around peptides and everything annoys the hell out of me. Love your podcast, a quality information source. Just a thank you from me. It's been great for educating and then diving into the relevant studies. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for your contribution to today's show. I appreciate that a lot. Then people don't have to listen to me drone on if I'm reading your comments. You know, I've been watching on TV a lot. So first of all, we're praising the first responders, the doctors and nurses and all that. And this is not a diss to them. I don't want this to be taken as that. It's not. They do a hard job. It's a thankless position. They put themselves at great risk in what they do. However, at the same time, there are literally millions of people who just found themselves out of work 40 somewhat days ago. Millions and millions. In fact, there are some analysts that are saying that the unemployment rate will hit close to 20% as this unfolds, as more states are reluctant to try to transition back to a normal life. People are literally at the door of catastrophe. You know, losing your home. You know, I know that people saying, well, landlords aren't kicking people out, and mortgage companies one by one they're saying, hey, we'll push back your loan, you won't have to pay, but once we start back up again, you will have to start catching up. Those things are not really where the pressure comes from. The pressure that a mother or father, single mother, single father family feels. The pressure they feel is the day-to-day, putting gas in the car, taking, putting food on the table. On top of that, now they're homeschooling. And let's not forget that many of those businesses that are closed right now are going to fail. It's not like when we get out of this, we just flip a switch and the restaurants will open up and everything. No, we're going to be devastated for months, even as we transition to normalcy. It's not just going to be flip the switch and everybody goes back to normal. So that means that a lot of the people who've lost their jobs won't even have those jobs to go back to, because those businesses are going to fail. They're going to be gone. I mean, big businesses are at threat to fail. There's some real big names that are like Neiman Marcus. They're like, we may not get out of this. And I'm not going to discuss the ramifications on our economy, because as soon as you talk about that, people are like, oh, all you care about is the stock market. What people fail to realize is the stock market represents tens of millions of jobs. All they look at is the stock and the people who invest in stock, and they think, oh, all you care about is the stock market. They think that those companies are in a vacuum. No, those are millions and millions and millions and millions of employees. If the stock market crashes, that means people lose jobs. Not the wealthy lose it. The wealthy we're not worried about. The wealthy will get through this. They'll be fine. It's the middle class that is going to be destroyed. And I think the real heroes today, that we should be paying attention to are the people who have lost their jobs. And, you know, they're not posting cool videos on Instagram or YouTube. You know, they're not posting pictures of them lined up like they're having a meal like the Last Supper, like those nurses did on Facebook. They're not dancing. They're not doing karaoke, you know. And again, cool for those people who are in that field, the first responders, showing that, hey, we're going to have fun with this. But they still have jobs. Granted, maybe they don't want to go to work. Maybe they're afraid to go to work, right? But there are a lot of people right now that would go to work if they could go to work because they're going to be devastated. And financial devastation can take a lifetime to correct. It's not like, well, yeah, you'll get a job, you'll catch up. No. It disrupts so many things. You lose a home, you lose your car, you know, you children, you know, are destroyed by the lack of stability in a household that you can't pay your bills and buy food. So the real heroes of this devastation are the silent sufferers who you don't even know about. And they're probably proud people. They are going to come forth and complain. They're just wringing their hands and going, man, I hope they open up this country again so we can start getting back to work. I just want to go to work. There's a lot of people who just want to go to work. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, Carl, all you care about is this. No, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. So there's a number thrown around, and it's been thrown around for decades, and I could not find a single shred of evidence that it's accurate. And in fact, I think it's low. I think it's a lowball number. There's a number that's been thrown around that for every 1% that unemployment rises, it represents 40,000 deaths. Now, I looked. I could not find anything other than people using that term over and over again, but I couldn't find any reference to where they came up with that term. And what I found out is, like, for the past 20 years, that term has been out there and it's been used ubiquitously by numerous people, but no one has ever referenced where it came from. But let that hang out there. So for every 1% that unemployment rises, 40,000 deaths are represented. Now, those deaths could be from a variety of things. They could be from financial distress. They could be suicide. They could be from a person who's teeter-tottering with poor health, and now the stress of being jobless pushes them over the edge, and their health just gets worse and worse and worse. And no, universal health care isn't the answer. That's not the answer. It's too late for those people. They go to the doctor, they're already dying. Yale did a study in May of 2002, and it says rising unemployment causes higher death rates. So we've known about this for a long time, actually close to 20 years. We know that employment is essential for people. They find their self-worth in their jobs. It's not just money, but also the fact that we know that people who live below the poverty line have a higher rate of death than people who don't. And everybody is fast to say, oh, well, you know, poverty-stricken people, they don't have access to this because they don't have the money. And, you know, they can't do this because they don't have the money. They can't buy good food because they don't have the money. But what did we forget that we just turned millions, tens of millions of people into poverty-stricken people? Sure, they still have a house, but that's a burden at this point in time if they can't make a mortgage payment. And the study goes on to identify that during times of high unemployment, suicide rates go up. Now, we are already hearing this in the media. Since COVID-19, and the shutdown, suicide rates have tripled in this short period of time. And there's an article on JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, saying suicide mortality and coronavirus, a perfect storm. And they're talking about, and they list it, the suicides are going up because of economic stress, social isolation, decreased access to community and religious support. We have a governor in Kentucky who is really a dimwit. I'm sorry. People wanted to go drive-in church. They were going to stay in their cars, parked in parking lots, and listen to the preacher talk on their radio, because, you know, they have these universal transmitters. You can set it to an FM channel, and everybody's going to have their windows closed, and they were going to go and worship. And he forbade it. And he said, if you do it, we're going to take your license plate number down, and everybody in your house has to quarantine for 14 days without coming out of your house. You know, Attorney General Barr just asked all U.S. attorneys to file suits against governors doing that, because he said, you know, the Constitution doesn't go away in a time of pandemic. We still have a Constitution. And these people are being breached of their Constitution. But also, when you have this, when people don't have jobs, there's barriers to receiving mental health treatment. They obviously have medical problems that they can't get the best care for. Anxiety goes through the roof. Healthcare professionals and suicide rates go up. We just had 2 doctors in New York commit suicide just yesterday. Seasonal variations, especially in the season. Like right now, we have a lot of rain and it's cold. That adds to it. But physical distancing, not social distance, but physical distancing from people is hurting them. So this study goes on and on to talk about the ramifications on mortality and suicide in the current situation that we are living through. I know a lot of people who are depressed right now. Thank God I'm not. Because the truth is, I live such a boring life. The only thing that's changed in my life is I just don't go to the gym. Everything else I do. I come in here and I work, and I'm very fortunate. However, I know a lot of people who are on the brink of crying all the time, men and women. They don't know why. Why? Because our civil liberties have been taken away from us. We're told to stay in the house. Plus, we're all scared crapless that we're going to catch this and die. So I could not find a solid number that equates how 1% rise in unemployment equals a certain number of deaths. And after reading this paper in the JAMA, it sounds like it's a lot more than 40,000. But let's stick with this number, since everybody's comfortable with this number. And it seems low to me, but let's stick with this number because it's even quoted in movies, this number, right? In movie scripts. So let's stick with this number. Let's just do a little simple math. So before this whole thing happened, we were at 3.5% or 2.5% unemployment. I don't remember. Let's say 3.5%. So let's just say that. Now, estimates are that the unemployment rate will go anywhere from 15 to 21% when this is all said and done. So let's take the low number, okay? So if we take 15 minus 3.5, that's 11.5% that the unemployment rate is already starting to reach. And if we times it by this number that everybody, including Hollywood, is comfortable with, that equates to 40,000 deaths per each percent, that is 460,000 deaths. Almost 500,000 people are going to die because we already know this. This isn't like COVID-19 where we're learning as we go and we're trying to figure it out as we go. We already know that unemployment increases deaths from all-cause mortality, including suicide. We know it. And since everybody's comfortable with this 40,000 deaths per percent of unemployment, this means that almost 500,000 people are going to die in the upcoming months because of the way we reacted to this virus. And if you listen to yesterday's show, I explained, in my humble opinion, very well, that we didn't have to do this in the whole country. We just had to block people from leaving New York, New Jersey, California, because those were really, and Washington State, because here's the way this virus got here and spread is international travel brought it to the United States, but the cities with large dependence on mass transit caused it to explode. People on the subways, on the buses. So when you look at hubs with mass transit and international travel, these are the epicenters. So all we really had to do was shut them off. People would have never been able to leave New York. And now don't get me wrong, we would have had some cases in other states where people traveled abroad, flew into JFK, and then flew to their home state of Texas or wherever. Yeah, those people would have brought it there. But because there's not a dependence on mass transit, it wouldn't have spread the way it did in New York. So when we look at this, what we have done, I am saying right now, governors like Andy Beshear are going to have blood on their hands because of the number of deaths associated with the rate of increase in unemployment. And I predict that the deaths from unemployment are going to be what they predicted COVID-19 was going to be. So all of these governors out there trying to restrict people and control people's lives, you are killing somebody right now. There's some guy committing suicide right now as I'm doing this show, that he's sucking the barrel of a gun because of your actions. So don't think you're saving lives by these draconian methods of forcing people to stay home in states where you only have a few cases and deaths. We've had 180 deaths here in Kentucky. There's parts of Kentucky, eastern Kentucky, that haven't had a single case. And yet Andy Beshear closed all the parks in those parts of Kentucky. He doesn't want people to go to the park, where if they actually get in the sunlight, they could actually be protected from COVID-19. I'm telling you, don't discount the downstream effects of the rise in unemployment that we are going to see in causing deaths in this country. And those deaths may actually top what we thought COVID-19 was going to do to us. If you think I'm right, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. If you think I'm wrong, email me at onair@superhumanradio.net. I'd love to hear your comments. Let's get some things up here. Thank you very much. Troy Gibson said, this is such a great show. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Share the show with friends. Suicides and crime will continue going up until we open the country. We just need people to wash their hands a bit more often and get healthy through exercise and diet. And you're absolutely right. I did a little piece on that yesterday, but I'm going to do a separate show on that. Giorgio Di Natale, who is a physician, I believe, maybe not, but I believe he's in Greece or Italy. I'm sorry, Suicide Prevention Lifeline.org. Yes, that's where people should go if they are having suicidal thoughts. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good way to close the show. All right, that's it for today. We have more tomorrow. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for participating, those of you who participated in today's show. I really appreciate it. And don't forget, share the show. Superhumanradio.net is the website. Not only can you find the podcast there now, but you can find these videos there as well. Watch it, share it with friends, help people out. And we'll see everybody tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Stay strong, stay alive. There you go.
Awesome.